Another question that often comes up is what do you do to define your panel lines, or how do you do panel line washes? Again, there are multiple different ways you can do this, but I think it really always goes back to what did you use for your base coat on your finished paintwork, and whatever you use for your panel line washes should not interfere or damage the layers that you're working on. So what I mean by that is that if you're using an acrylic base color for your car, I would recommend you don't use an acrylic wash for your panel lines. The reason for that is that, and you'll see this demonstrated in a little bit, is that when you're doing your panel line washes, you want to be removing the excess paint, and what you don't want to do is damage the paint underneath it. So the solvents that will be used in acrylics that you'll use for your panel line washes are also the same solvents that potentially are being used for your base coat on your car, and the two can affect each other, and you'll find that you'll be wrecking your paintwork. So if you're using automotive quality paints like I am, or even lacquers, you can use enamels and also acrylics without it affecting the base color. Now, what I've been doing a lot with my Ferrari colors is use Citadel inks, in particular the color called chestnut ink. I find that this really does highlight the panel lines on the Italian red very nicely. It's just that right tint that I feel looks really good on Italian red. So the way to do that is you want a relatively fine brush. So I've got my Vallejo brushes here, which have seen better days. Now with these inks, the good thing about them is that they're pretty thin. They are just like your normal writing ink. Miniature painters use this to add depth and get different effects on the actual colours, but maybe more on that on another day. But the good thing about it for our particular purposes is that it is pretty thin, so you really don't need to do anything other than dip your brush into the paint and just start highlighting some of these panel lines. What you want to do is just tip it into a corner, and capillary action will draw the paint into that panel line. Now, I'm not quite sure how well the effect actually gets picked up on camera, but you find that the paint is just drawn into that panel line, and there's really not much to clean up. But even if there was, what you want to do is just let that dry for as long as it takes for your paint to dry. With the kind of weather we've been having lately, it'll take about 5 seconds. But just let the paint dry, and what you want to do is then go over it with, say, some of your Tamiya wax and remove any excess. But that's pretty good actually. I don't think I will even need to be doing that. So that's panel line that's been done, comparing that to one that hasn't. You can see there's quite a difference there. So proceed doing that with the rest of the kit, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes. I've had a lot of questions in the past from members wanting to understand what I do to polish my cars. It really does depend on what I'm aiming to achieve, but generally I use Tamiya's cutting compounds followed with the Tamiya's modeling wax. With the coarse, the red bottled, the red capped cutting compound, I normally just use as part of my preparation work, so before I do any painting. But to be honest, I'm sort of not really using this as much as I used to these days. But what I still use quite regularly is Tamiya's fine and finish polishing compounds. Now I'll start normally with the fine, so just rub that through like you've seen in just earlier in the video, and I follow that up with Tamiya's finishing compound. And once I've placed everything, as in all the clear parts, I've topped that off and I finish it with Tamiya modeling wax just to get rid of any fingerprints and just to do that final polish. Another thing I use in conjunction with the cutting compounds are these microfiber polishing pads. Now, I so happen to pick up a pack of 3, which also coincides with the 3 different compounds. So one is actually a little rough, which is actually designed for cleaning or general purpose cloth, as the label would indicate. I've got another here which is a little finer, which is for glass and chrome. And a really soft one, which I like to use for my finishing compounds and sometimes my actual wax, which is just a general dusting cloth. So yeah, have a look around for those, but really even just an old t-shirt, an old cotton t-shirt, anything that's lintless would be a good starting point. Now the way I apply this is I just get a little small dab of the modeling wax and I apply it onto my cloth and just a slow rubbing motion, apply it to the kit. Don't let the wax dry on the model, as it will leave almost a dusty residue. So just sort of rub that in, and eventually you'll start to see that start bringing a shine to your model. And just go into a drier piece of cloth just to add that last final polish. And there it is, and I wonder if you can pick up my reflection in that. Hey, geez, it's looking pretty good. Now I still want to mask this particular area off and paint it according to the instructions, so I won't continue the polishing there. I really just wanted to give you a clear indication. Once the body's back on, I'll finish that off just before we're ready to put the model away.